Dallas Willard says grace delivers us from earning, not from effort. Self-control is a fruit of the Spirit. We have the ability to exercise self-control.
Why is it not happening?
Lack of effort.
Yeah.
Proverbs 25:28 says.
A person without self-control is like a city with broken down walls.
It's a city that could be easily
Taken.
destroyed by the enemy.
And that's the same thing for our spirit, because I see too many people that are quitting way too early. And why? It's because they lack the fear of God.
God makes the statement, my people are destroyed because they don't know me.
But I could just see someone, I don't want to be destroyed because of a lack of knowing God.
So if you're listening and your cry is to know God, his cry is to know you.
Yeah.
So the fear of the Lord is what gives you the ability to do the endurance that we just talked about.
We were talking about it the other day. What did we say? We said,
These are the 7 things. These are the 7 things that God never wants us to forget.
Ever feel like you're kind of stuck? Spiritually, I mean, like you should be further along. Well, we're diving into this sermon by John Bevere, Pastor John Bevere. Might have some answers, even if you're, not super religious. He's got these 7 principles for growth, calls them the things God never wants us to forget.
7, huh? That's a framework right there.
Yeah.
Kind of like those old wisdom traditions, always with the key tenets and all that. What's he starting with?
First one is moral excellence. But don't think like goody two-shoes stuff. It's deeper. It's about, character, being the same inside and out, even when no one's watching.
So like aligning your actions with your values, however you define those.
Exactly. And he gets into, like, the Greek word for it, aret. It's about striving for what's admirable, and he connects it back to Scripture, which, yeah, he's a pastor, makes sense. But even if you're not, that idea of inner strength, that's pretty universal, isn't it? Like, what kind of person am I deep down?
Right, because that's your compass when things get rough. And that actually leads into Bevere's second principle, knowledge. But not just any trivia. He means deeply understanding something meaningful.
So it's like when you read something and it just clicks, and suddenly, bam, you see the world differently. He says true knowledge, it's not passive. It changes you from the inside out.
And that takes effort. He actually compares studying Scripture to training for an Ironman, which, you don't just wake up one day and run a marathon.
Oh, tell me about it. I tried learning like a new language a while back, thought I could just breeze through. No way. It took dedication, discipline. And that is actually Bevere's third principle, right? Self-control,
Right.
saying we can choose our responses even when things are tough.
He uses a powerful image for this one. Says a person without self-control is like, get this, a city with broken down walls, wide open, vulnerable. It's about building that resilience.
So not deprivation, but boundaries, inner boundaries. Okay, so I've got moral excellence, knowledge, self-control. What's next?
So then he talks about perseverance, or patient endurance is another way he puts it. It's that ability to stick with it, even when, and let's be honest, we've all been there, you just want to give up.
Oh, yeah. And he's got this great analogy for it about a cornfield. It says, like, if you watch it grow every single day, you barely notice. But come back a few weeks later, bam, it's shot up.
It's like those time-lapse videos. You don't see the tiny changes, but then suddenly you've got this sunflower reaching for the sky.
And just like those plants need, nourishment, Bevere says our spirits need to be nourished too, especially when things are hard.
Which is where his next principle comes in. Godliness.
Oh.
Now stick with me here. Even if you're not religious, this one's not about, halos and stuff. He means cultivating a sense of awe for something bigger than yourself.
Yeah. It's like not being perfect, but realizing there's something vast out there. We see it in nature, art, even just like space. The vastness of space, it's awe-inspiring.
Exactly.
Yeah.
He uses the phrase, fear of the Lord, but then clarifies it's not about being scared. It's about deep respect, reverence. And that, he says, is the foundation of wisdom.
So you can have all the knowledge in the world, but without that awe, you won't use it wisely.
Right. And that takes us to principle number 6, brotherly affection. Or in the original Greek, it's Philadelphia, which is more about like affectionate love, kindness.
Okay, so be kind. Got it.
Well, he goes a little deeper. Says it's not just about being nice all the time. Gives the example of like a parent disciplining their kid. Not always fun in the moment, right? But it comes from love, the tough love that helps someone grow.
So it's about showing up for people, even when it's hard. I've needed that and tried to be that for others too. Not always easy, but it sounds like those difficult conversations, sometimes they're necessary.
And that leads beautifully into his final principle, which kind of ties everything together, love.
Love, okay, big one. What's his take?
He uses this Greek word for it, agape, which is like that selfless love. Unconditional, not, romantic, but the kind that puts others first, even when it's tough.
I'm not just talking the talk, but walking the walk, huh? Because, yeah, that kind of love, that takes work. Doesn't sound like he's sugarcoating it either.
Not one bit. He even says the world doesn't really get this kind of love because it's so different from, the what's in it for me kind of love. But here's the thing. He really believes that embracing these 7 principles, it can lead to some amazing stuff in our lives.
Okay, now you're speaking my language. Like what? Because I'm all about little personal growth, gotta say.
Well, he starts with that feeling of being stuck, so many people feel that. I'm trying, but nothing's changing.
Oh, been there. You're gung-ho at first, and then life, right?
Yeah.
What's his solution for that?
He often boils it down to, lack of effort. We want the growth without really going for it. He's got this line, "My people are destroyed by a lack of knowledge." Sounds intense, but it's more about how crucial it is to actually be engaged in our own growth, that is.
Yeah.
Well, we got to step up, not just wait for things to happen.
Exactly. Dive in, challenge ourselves, let those experiences change us. It's like, remember that language you were trying to learn? Imagine just dabbling versus really getting in there, immersing yourself, changing how you think. That's the kind of effort he's talking about.
And with that language, he says it takes discipline, perseverance. He's big on that whole endurance training thing, pushing your limits, building mental toughness.
And, we always celebrate the end, right? The finish line, the fluency. But he wants us to enjoy the journey, too. Because it's in those moments when we're pushing that we find out what we're really made of.
That feeling after a hard workout, right? You're wiped, but also dang, I did that. He wants us to tap into that. Totally. And he reminds us we don't have to go it alone either. Talks about community, having people to support us, challenge us, celebrate with us.
That brotherly affection, coming full circle, having those strong relationships, it makes all the difference, especially when things are rough. We all need someone who gets it, who you can be real with.
Absolutely. And it's through those real connections that we learn to practice that agape love, too.
Yeah.
That grace, that compassion, it goes beyond just us.
Yeah.
Like a ripple effect.
So it's like this cycle, personal growth, better relationships, more kindness out in the world. I like it. But does he really think just living by these principles can have that kind of impact?
He doesn't just think it, he's convinced. Aligning our lives this way unlocks things, freedom, joy, real purpose. And he doesn't mean some floaty happiness, but deep down contentment.
Yeah.
The kind that shows.
So people notice, our lives become the proof.
Yeah. It's that, what's the quote? Be the change, Gandhi, right? Living it is how we influence most. We become the example.
And even though he talks about godliness, it's bigger than religion, isn't it? Tapping into our potential for good, for strength, for love. We've all got that in us.
He's describing someone who's not just along for the ride, but living on purpose, with integrity, wanting to make things better.
Inspiring, sure. But he also gets that it's a journey, not a magic spell. There'll be bumps, mistakes, times we want to quit. It's about the whole messy process.
Oh, absolutely. He's clear it's not about life being perfect after this, or never feeling bad. He uses that city analogy again. Strong walls, they don't mean no hardship, but you're safe inside while it's rough out there.
So not invincible, but kind of weatherproof, having the strength to deal.
Exactly. And that, he says, brings a peace that's, deeper than just, I'm happy. He calls it a peace that passes understanding, no matter what's going on around you.
There's people who've been through it, but they've got this peace about them, they're drawing on something bigger.
And he thinks we can all do that. By working on these 7 things, knowing we have worth, we have a purpose, and we can handle what comes.
So from moral excellence to agape love, knowledge to perseverance, that's quite the deep dive.
It is. And even though it started with, a pastor and a sermon, we've seen how it applies way beyond that to anyone who wants to grow, to be more themselves. And maybe make the world a little better in the process.
Leaves you feeling hopeful, huh? World's got problems, but we can do something about it, starting with ourselves.
And sometimes that's the most powerful place to start.